after I went through genetic testing, I hid my diagnosis and the fact that my dad had HD from people for a very long time, because I was afraid that if people found out, they wouldn't want to be friends with me, or they wouldn't want to be in a relationship with me. I do remember the first time I tested it out, I guess you could say. You know, there was my husband and I had a new couple friend. They didn't know anything about Huntington's disease or that it was in my family. And we went out for dinner and I was like, I made the intentional thought, I'm gonna use the word Huntington's disease in the conversation for the first time. So then over the course of dinner, I said something about my dad having Huntington's disease, and that moment was like terrifying for me. And I thought, okay, that's gonna be it. They're gonna call me tomorrow and say, I never wanna see you again, or something like that. Like, that's how dramatic I thought things would be. And I was just in such a bad place. Like, even if the HD clinic sent something to me in the mail, I was like, oh no, now the postman's gonna know that I have Huntington's disease, because it had the logo on the outside. So I was really terrified in the beginning, and I just did little things like that, going out to dinner and saying the word Huntington's disease without crying was a really big deal to me at the time.
Yeah, and what was like the unexpected maybe support or emotions of other people that you were like, oh, this isn't a big deal, or it is?
I would say most people don't really get it, so it's just like, not a big deal to them. Unless you express that it's a big deal, they don't take it as a big deal. That's my experience.
So I like how you say people don't really understand it. I see a lot of people who either disregard it, or in turn they also try to compare it to something else.
Sure.
And I see when people compare it as them trying to have some layer of understanding, like, oh, I know this little portion of what it's like, and I'm like, well, it's a great place to start. For me, I got that first like form of affirmation when I actually went to the HDYO camp for the first time, because it's different talking to other people who don't understand. And you know, they can have a level of empathy, but not a complete understanding of what it is. But until you get around an HD group and you tell your story, and they're just like, yeah, we're all about it. And it's comforting.
I have a story to just add on to that, because there was one time I reached out to this lady in Canada who's a research scientist. Her name is Tamara, and we decided, oh, let's get together and have lunch together. And it was the very first time we had ever met, and we were sitting there chatting, and the waitress was like, oh, I can see you have a lot to catch up on, so I don't want to interrupt, but what do you want to eat, right? And I was like, oh, she thinks we've known each other for a very long time, but that was just like how instant the connection was, and how I didn't have to explain stuff to her. She just immediately got it. So since I didn't have to explain all that basic stuff, we could get into the deeper stuff that was really bothering me.
Yeah. It sometimes feels like, especially at these kind of events, right, like the most important thing is finding that community, and you feel like so safe and comfortable out of nowhere. I don't know any of you, right? And I remember my first HDSA convention, like listening, and I never met anybody else in this community, and I just started hysterical crying, and someone just embraced me and hugged me, and I was just like, oh my God, like I feel so seen, and I don't have to explain anything, I don't have to share anything with anyone. And I finally realized, like, this is my safe space. This is a place that I can call home, right? And I think storytelling, then we can go into, like, how did you build up to being able to tell your story? And what was that first time like, of like, not just like introducing it to someone, but really embracing and empowering yourself to share? So,
I spoke at different conventions. I did to test or not to test. Did suicide prevention. I've spoken in different capacities, and a lot of time it's in HD community settings. But the first time, like really stepping out of that shell, was when we started doing Game Over HD, and I was just sharing it to the world. Like anyone could have hopped on and just said whatever they wanted to it. And I'll be honest, the first time, like I was just speaking it out into the ether, I was like, oh goodness, my stomach sank, but I just kind of kept talking. But as I kept talking about it, and you know, I've actually made friends because they'll hop onto the stream and be like, we love what you're doing. What you do is amazing. And they're never negative about it. And, you know, they'll ask questions like, you know, what about this? What about that? How do we deal with this? And, you know, they take all, you know, negative information that we give and flip it positive and make you, you know, feel stronger for it. And it's like one of the most elative experiences, just kind of having that, it feels like a one-on-one confrontation, and then it kind of disappears and you can see the millions.
It took me a long time to be public. I started writing a book about my experiences of going through genetic testing and deciding how I was gonna have kids, knowing that my kids were at risk, and that was really a traumatic experience. And we ended up suffering through infertility, and we didn't have a kid for 5.5 years, and we eventually ended up adopting our daughter. But adopting is also hard when you know you're going to get Huntington's disease, because you have to prove that you're going to be well enough to take care of the child. So that was a very traumatic experience. And then after I got it, like I had my kid, I felt like, okay, I finally feel like I fit into that part of society now. Like I don't feel like an outcast because of infertility, but I still felt like an outcast because nobody knew my HD story and I was hiding that part of myself. And I started thinking like there's gotta be a better way to live. I did look to Michael J. Fox a lot because he was speaking about his Parkinson's diagnosis and saying like, this is a gift. I'm looking for all the gifts that this diagnosis has brought me. And I thought like, I wanna be like that guy. So I just started writing the book. I had a writing coach, and she was often the only one that I talked to about what I was writing about. And I had a new friend, and we'd drop our kids off to JK, and then when we walked back that 2 minutes to the car, I'd say, oh, this is the latest chapter I'm writing, and I would just hash it out with her. But I didn't even tell anybody I was writing the book because if anybody had said anything negative to me at that point, I wouldn't have been able to handle it, and I wouldn't have gone through with it. And then nobody in my family read the book until after it was out.
Really?
Yeah.
When did you finally, like, how did you share it with your family at that point?
I don't even remember. But it
It
took
didn't
4.5 years to get to that point, so.
So
it was
it
a
took you
long
4.5
journey.
years to write the book?
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. And I did have one article published online. I wrote something, and I published it on the 90. And it took them 8 months. Like I submitted it, and 8 months later they accepted it, and I was like, oh crap. and then I was like, oh, should I put it on Facebook? And Daniel's like, it's already online. You might as well put it on Facebook. And that was the first time I sort of came out to my Facebook friends and family about it. And I just got positive responses. You know, oh, I didn't know that's what you were going through, or that kind of stuff. Like all of the horrible things I thought would happen didn't happen.
Usually is like that, right? Anxiety is crazy. Like it makes up so many things for us. But so that unexpected like support, did that empower you then to like, you know what, now I don't need to worry about like giving people my book?
No. But it's still terrifying to keep doing it. Every time somebody said,
I was gonna say, and then multiple books after that.
yeah, and then if people said it was good, I was like, really? What exactly did you think was good? I need to know. Yeah.
When did you know you wanted to keep writing?
Well, when my first book came out, I experienced this, it's like all of a sudden, all of those stories that I was holding on to, because they felt so important, like I didn't have to hold on to them anymore. I'm like, okay, they're in the book now. It was like a weird feeling that it took me like 6 months to figure out what was going on. It's like, okay, those stories are in the book, they could be there, I don't have to hold on to them anymore. And it was just like this huge release, and this weight lifted off my shoulders. And I thought it would be great to help other people from the HD community do that. And I was still thinking, oh, everybody's secretive about HD. Nobody's gonna wanna be in this book. Nobody's gonna wanna share their stories. And I didn't even know anybody from the community really. So I like reached out to that one person who sent me to that one person. I put a post on Facebook, and then like within 3 months I had spoken to about 130 different people who wanted to share their stories, and then it ended up being 35. And then some people dropped out due to family issues, so we ended up with 25 or 26 people in that book.
But initially that interest, like people want to share.
Yeah, people do. They're dying for
A voice.
yeah, a place to share them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.